Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head to a little town called Landskrona, which is actually quite close to me here in Lund. It's about 15 minutes or so on the train up north. So we're going to visit Brygghuset Finn, who are actually founded by former students of my university, Lund University, and we're going to have a taste of their India Pale Ale today. Supposed to be quite a nice beer. The guys in the Systembolaget here in Lund recommended that I have a go at this one because it is quite a local one, so hopefully it will be a nice beer for us to review. But anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the company. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All of the usual websites are in the video description below, so that's the brewery website, the links to my other reviews from Finn that I'll add in the near future, and also the Facebook page and the Untappd profile for the channel, so feel free to connect with me in whatever way you like. But anyway, to tell you about Finn Brygghuset. So, Brygghuset Finn are based in Landskrona, which I said is kind of in the middle of Lund and Helsingborg in the southern part of Sweden. It's in Skåne. But the company was founded by two former students of Lund University, Peter Lindholm and Simon Frenberg, and these guys studied entrepreneurship at Lund University. But as part of their course, they actually had to create and plan a fictitious company, and for this they decided to plan a brewery. So in the early days the brewery was just a kind of imagination, if you like, but then it became a reality. But Simon was actually an avid home brewer, and he'd brewed during his time in the university halls of residence, where they actually lived with their friend Joachim, who was the guinea pig for many of the early beers. He used to be one of the first people to taste them, but now he is Brygghuset Finn's company CEO. But after finishing university, they found a perfect location for the brewery behind the old railway station in Landskrona, and they actually ordered their custom-made equipment towards the end of 2013, and they were able to produce their first beers in early 2014, and now they've got a range of 4 different beers, and they're distributed quite widely across Sweden. I believe there's some of the places up in northern Sweden that do have them, but they're more common here in the southern part of Sweden in places like Skåne and things like that. So apparently this is a brewery that will be on the rise steadily over the next few years. But just to list the other beers that you can get from Brygghuset Finn, there is the California Lager, the Brown Ale, the India Pale Ale, and also the American Pale Ale, and I'm sure that once they actually start to expand a bit more, you will see some more beers coming from these guys. So anyway, that's your kind of brief history of the brewery. If you want to read more about them, as I say, check out the brewery website in the description below, and hopefully I will review a few more of these in the fairly near future. They're quite easy to get, so I'm sure I will. So anyway, to tell you about this beer itself, as you can see, the artwork is actually quite simple on this one. It's quite nicely presented, and all of them are fairly similar to this. You can see the Brygghuset Finn bottle cap on the top of this one there. But yeah, this is the India Pale Ale. All of them have a kind of slightly different colour here, just depending on what beer it is. So this guy is an IPA, as you might have guessed. It comes in at 6.2%. The malt base on this one is pale ale malt, Münchner malt, crystal and biscuit malts, and it's hopped with Challenger, Centennial and Citra from America, and also Nelson Sauvin, which is a New Zealand hop. So this one has a good mix of malts, and the American hops, and especially the New Zealand one as well, will give it some really nice fruity flavours. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this guy. So this is another beer that is quite local to me in Sweden. As you can see, a nice smoky opening on this guy as we open it up. 330ml bottle, this one, and I think this one cost me maybe about 20 crowns or something like that, so maybe that's probably about £1.50 or €2, I guess is probably the translation of this one. So yeah, as you can see, it's poured a really nice kind of dark orange amber. I'll just bring up the camera and make sure that you can see that properly. I'll just flip the light over and let you see the colour of this one, but it's quite a dark browny amber, this one. It looks quite nice. There's a little bit of sediment just in the bottom of the glass there, and that's kind of to be expected with some of these craft beers. Usually you get it. It is hazy. If I put my fingers behind it, you can see that it's not transparent at all, and there's just under about a quarter of a finger of a frothy kind of white coloured head there, but that's just fading away to be a very thin foamy layer now. But it looks Very, very nice beer. A few big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but quite a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head. I initially thought that this brewery was from Lund, and I think in one of my previous videos I said to you that we had 2 breweries here in Lund, but the brewery here is Brygghuset, and these guys are actually from Landskrona, which is just a little bit up the road. But yeah, so without further ado, we'll get stuck into this guy then. So in terms of the aroma with this one, it's quite interesting actually. It's got quite a malty character to it, this one. So there's a nice bit of bready and caramel and biscuity malt in there, which is kind of what you would expect with the malt base that they've put in this beer. But there's a bit of an interesting fruit nose as well. A good bit of hoppy character coming out of this one, but when you sugar it up a little bit more, you start to get the more malty characters out of this one. It smells a bit dusty in the sense it's got a bit of a kind of dusty hop character to it. So you've got floral and aromatic notes on this one, and that's usually the Centennial and the Challenger. And I want to say there's a little bit of an earthy character to it, and usually that's a thing with English hops. And Challenger, I believe, you can get an American version and you can also get an English version of it. So maybe it's the English version of the Challenger that they've put in this, because it does smell a little bit earthy. But you can get, there's some gooseberries in here, which is the Nelson Sauvin from New Zealand. That has a really kind of distinct gooseberry note in this. So when you're getting an unusual fruity characteristic, it's usually gooseberries from Nelson Sauvin if that's in the beer. But there's a bit of an orangey citrus in it too, and some tropical fruits. You can pick up a bit of tropical fruit, but the tropical fruit is quite subtle, and that's the citra hop coming out. So maybe there's a bit, I want to say it's a kind of apricot-y note that you're getting from that, but there's not much in the way of kind of grapefruit or passion fruit, which is normally what you can pick out from the citra hop. But yeah, it's kind of the hoppy characteristics of this beer are more kind of floral and aromatic. That's the the Centennial and the Challenger coming out, and then you've got a bit of gooseberry from the Nelson Sauvin. There's a little bit of citrusy character in there too, and you can pick up just a little bit of the tropical fruits that you expect from the citra hop. But as I say, there's quite a bit of a malty character on this too. The hops are a bit dusty, but you can really pick up a bit of sweet caramel and biscuity malt in this one. And there is a good bit of bready character as well. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this guy. So this is the India Pale Ale from Brygghuset Finn in Landskrona in southern Sweden, Skåne. So for this one we shall get stuck in. Skål! Actually quite nice. It tastes quite different in comparison with what you would expect from the aroma, this guy. Yeah, nice little bit of fruity flavour coming out of this one. There is a wee bit of a kind of tropical mix of fruits in there, maybe a little bit of grapefruit and a bit of passion fruit. That you always get this little bit of sour character from grapefruit, and then there's a bit of passion fruit and maybe sort of peaches or apricots or something mixed in there, but you get this sour character that is always associated with the grapefruit, that kind of unusual sour flavour that fruit gives you. There is a definite kind of gooseberry presence in this one as well. The fruit character doesn't have anything really kind of punching its way out at you. It's a very big blend of different fruits, and it's quite unusual in that sense. But as I always say when you're tasting the beers, sugar it around your mouth a little bit and let your whole palate adjust before you think too deeply about the flavour. But there's a good, underneath this one, as your palate adjusts to it, you'll find there's a sweet caramel and biscuity malt in the middle of the palate. The middle of your palate is kind of blanketed with this sort of bready characteristic, and on top of that there's a bit of the kind of cereally biscuity flavours coming out, and that bready flavour comes from the Munich malts, if I remember rightly, but on top of it you've got a bit of a kind of cereally bready character in there. The cereal does become a little bit spicy in the aftertaste, but there's a bit of a richer, kind of sweeter caramel in there as well. But it's quite a nice sessionable beer, this one. The hoppy characteristics I think are leaning more towards a kind of floral and an aromatic character, and there's just a little bit of fruit in there. And as I say, I'm really getting a good bit of gooseberry from this one, and that's the Nelson Sauvin hop coming out quite a bit. But there is a little bit of a kind of tropical fusion in there as well, so the fruit characteristics in this one are really quite unusual in a sense, because you're getting gooseberries mixed with a sort of tropical juice. Like some of these tropical juices you can get in the supermarkets that have got grapefruit and passion fruit and all of these things in it. It tastes just an unusual blend of fruit, but it's quite nice and it works for the beer. But yeah, it's a nice sessionable beer, that, and what I'm finding is that the malt character in it is just giving you a nice little bit of sweetness after the hoppy characteristic subsides, and the hoppy character comes back into it a little bit in the aftertaste, and around the very front of the tongue you're just getting a little bit of a grassy and slightly aromatic character that's lingering there, and the fruit disappears after a while, but you're getting this little oily bubble behind the very front curve of your tongue where the fruity characters are coming out, and as I say, gooseberries and some kind of mix of tropical fruit in there. Some of the guys in the shop told me they got oranges from this one, but as I always say, beer is subjective, so people are going to get different things from it just depending on how your palate is. But I really think with this one, gooseberries and a bit of tropical fruit, some kind of peaches and apricot in there, mixing in with the gooseberries, and there is a definite grapefruit kind of sour character to this one, which is quite nice. Not sour in the same way as sour beers are, I just always describe the grapefruit flavour as being that kind of sour flavour, I guess. But yeah, it's quite a nice beer, I have to admit. Be interested to try. We've got an American Pale Ale as well, which would be really quite interesting. So in terms of comparing, in Sweden, it seems to be that when they always say something's an India Pale Ale, it really is more like an English IPA, but the American Pale Ales kind of go over more towards the American style, if that makes sense. A lot of British breweries, if you like, make an IPA, but really it fits more into the American category of the style rather than the more traditional English IPA, if that makes sense. So usually you get a bit more fruitiness in the IPAs in Britain than you do in Sweden. Sweden's tends to be very traditional, so it's more of a kind of florally, aromatic and caramel flavour you get out of this, and this seems to be the trend in Sweden, so I'm sure the APA will have a little bit more of the kind of juicy fruit character than this one has, but this is really nice. I quite like the IPAs that have a bit of floral and aromatic character to them, and it's always interesting to notice little trends like that when you come to different countries and try their beer. But yeah, it's nicely flavoured, as I say. Floral aromatic character on this one is quite prominent. You've got a little bit of the kind of an unusual fruity character in this, gooseberries, and a bit of the tropical fruit as well, which works quite nicely, but it is more of a kind of, I would say the gooseberries are kind of pushing the tropical fruits back a little bit, but floral aromatic character in there probably is the most prominent component. But in terms of the mouthfeel of this beer, I definitely say mid-bodied. The carbonation is really quite smooth. There is a good bit of fruity character in it. It's not so juicy. It kind of gives way a bit more to a slightly dry and bitter floral aromatic character, but it works for it. I really quite enjoy these English style IPAs. One of my kind of go-to sessionable styles of beer, if you like, but this one has a nice little bit of dry and bitter character, particularly in the aftertaste, and in the middle of the palate, like I was saying, you do get a nice kind of like malty sweetness, and there is a little bit of dry character in the malt base too. There's a bit of cereal spice in there, but it works really nicely, and this is a good beer, so I would recommend that if you come across it, give it a go if you enjoy your kind of typical English style IPAs, or if you enjoy these kind of India ales, as they call them in Sweden. A lot of the things like Oppigårds have their India tribute, and Nils Oskar have their India ale. It's kind of in the same light as that, so definitely one that you want to have a go of. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. It's been really cool to visit another Swedish brewery, especially one that's quite local to me here in Lund. I'll definitely try a few more of their beers. They've got a nice brown ale, which is one of my favourite styles, so I'll probably review that for you next. But I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. As always, if you have tried this beer yourself, please let me know your own thoughts on it in the comments section below. To my Swedish viewers, please suggest some Swedish beers for me to have a taste of, and I'll keep an eye out and see if I can find them. We're a bit limited here though, as I say, because of the state monopoly of the alcohol shops, but hopefully I can find the beers you suggest. But I thank you all for watching my beer reviews. Until the next one, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff, and hope you're all enjoying this series of Nordic beer reviews that I'm doing for you, and there's many more to come. Skål!